It's a brand new week. Welcome. There he is, Marco D'Amico, relaxed, smiling, ready for the stretch drive of the Montreal Canadiens season. See, I told you he was smiling. I wasn't lying. Marco, what's up, brother?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Are you having fun this season? You having fun?
I mean, I started on the Canadians beat in the season of 2021, 2022. So I would say
Yeah,
that this has been the more entertaining season from a journalistic, like professional perspective. And I'm
sure.
sure fans probably agree just by watching it. They've felt all kinds of emotions this season. But for all intents and purposes, I think management and fans wanted to see progress. And, for me, I think the key players that they wanted to see progress from, they got it. And so, like, that's going to kind of
Mm-hmm.
help in terms of
Mm-hmm.
where the Canadians go this summer.
Like the rebuild to me, man, you know what? Like to answer my own question, it's been awesome. Like I've enjoyed the process from an outsider's perspective. Like I don't eat, sleep, and breathe Canadians like Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon do. Like we talk about the Canadians. These guys, I mean, they live and breathe it 24/7. Like from an outsider perspective, I really enjoy the mechanics of a rebuild, of trial and error, prospects, developing. You draft a guy, Marco, you graduate him, and then look, it pays off. Like, Lane Hudson is the perfect example of a guy that had a little hype around him. How is his NC2A success going to translate? Will it translate?
Mm.
Obviously, the answer is crystallized. Like, that's what I mean. That part of it has been, to me, entertaining. The juice is well worth the squeeze as we talk about a Canadians team that did what they wanted to do, right? Like that's the ultimate silver lining. We could talk about the road trip. We could talk about the lack of goals. We could talk about the poor starts, the losing streak, having a playoff spot, falling out of a playoff spot, Marco, that they wanted to be in the mix. And at the end of it all, like the silver lining truly is they had goals. And do you feel comfortable saying that the Canadians achieved their goals that they set out for themselves in Laval at the golf club for training camp?
Yes. Yeah, I would think that expecting this team with the addition of just Line, and then obviously the midseason acquisition of Alex Carey, expecting that team to make the playoffs, I think at the beginning of the season would have been a little rough. I
Right.
think, I was very much, and I'm not Nostradamus here, but my projection was very much where they are now. Like a seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th in the East, I think is that range, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I would even stretch to seventh, probably like 8, 9, 10, 11 in the East in terms of where they would be. But it's so tight just because there's such a divide in the Eastern Conference between the top teams. And we obviously saw that against the Carolina Hurricanes, the just world class team with the additions that they've gotten. And then, you look at, the teams chasing them like the Islanders or the Rangers, some games fantastic, some games, horrendous. So that kind of parity is what allows us to be fun. I think the difference between all those teams and the Canadians, maybe outside of the Columbus Blue Jackets, because they're a fantastic story, but you look at the other teams that we're chasing, those are not teams on the up and up. Those are teams
Right.
struggling to stay up, right? And I think where you look at it from a Canadians fan is, what have you been able to take from this season? I think it's unquestionable at this point that Nick Suzuki is a number one center. I don't care what anybody says out in Toronto or whatnot. Every stat outlier shows he is a number one center in this league. I think Cole Caulfield cemented himself as one of the best snipers in the league. And I think a little bit more, a little bit of a better start for Uri Slafkovsky, and he would be able to assert himself as a true top six threat in the NHL with good size.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously Lane Hudson looks like he's going to be potential Norris caliber defenseman for years to come. I mean, where would the Montreal Canadiens be without Lane Hudson? Potentially a lottery team, right? Like
Yep.
when you add
Yep.
key elements like that push you up versus the rest of the of your division specifically, but then also within the conference, you got to be happy about it. I think ultimately when you look at this season, I see a lot of plus. I see a lot of things you can count on. So we talked about Lane Hudson, we talked about Cole Caulfield, we talked about Nick Suzuki, to a degree, Slavkovsky. I think, especially over the last little run, I think Jaden Strubles looked incredible next to Lane Hudson, and I think that only helps him, in his standing in the future. And I think that, Caden Gooley, just by his absence, showed just how important he is to this team, to the success of this team, because when he went down with that injury, it really was a huge blow to the team. Having him back is a help, but you're not really getting Caden Gooley at 100% right now. So it is, there are a lot of pieces to build around, and as there's a lot of pieces in Laval that are going to be added.
Yep.
There's a lot of pieces outside of Montreal that Canadians would very much like to add ASAP, such as Ivan Demidov. There's a lot of flowing parts. So when I look at this season from a Canadian's perspective, objectively, there's a lot to be excited about. And there's a reason why the rest of the hockey world is looking at Montreal and going, they're going to be a team to watch next year. And it's not for nothing, not just with that core alone. I think they're going to be a team to watch as they continue to develop consistency. But as they add secondary scoring, as they add more, what would be the word here, stability on defense, I think that is what's going to allow them to really kind of take the next step. And even from a goaltending perspective, will they go with Davish, or will they sign a veteran netminder to back up Samuel Montembeault? And does that change the dynamic? Because next season, for example, you can't not make the playoffs. They're at that point, right?
Agreed. Yes.
If you're in the mix now and you regress next season, you got bigger problems, right? So you have to make the playoffs to continue that trajectory. And so there are a lot of questions to be asked, but the benefit of being able to ask those questions is that you have the pieces in place that allow you to ask those questions. Because when you're a rebuilding team and you got nothing going on, it's not even a question of how do we fill this hole or that hole. It's where do we start?
Yes. It's forward progress
every summer.
Correct. Yes. No, it's forward progress all the time. And there's no reason today to doubt the forward progression. We'll see in the fall, right? Like you talk about Caden Gooley. Great to see him back Friday in Carolina, right? Positive. And to me, and maybe this is the ultimate fanboy take, but I often wonder when Caden Gooley comes out and talks about how great the team has been, the medical staff, in terms of getting him back up to game shape. I wonder whether or not that has a carryover effect. But it doesn't change the fact that Caden Gooley's return also coincides with another dip in play from the Montreal Canadiens. And it also doesn't take away from, the points that you had made as it relates to, Nick Suzuki's line, looking at the depth for Martin St. Louis and asking the question, what happened? What happened? What happened to a team that was, making Colorado sweat on a Saturday night? I mean, is it too simple to look at the reality of their style of play? Like if we go from Feb 22nd to March 18th, this team played 11 games. They won 8 of them. They had a plus 15 goal differential. And then the fall, where everything went 180 degrees from that 11-game run. Is it just the amount of times, Marco, that they've played catch up, and that the reality is, yes, hockey is hard at this level and it's hard to sustain it for a prolonged period? Because that's kind of how I look at it. It's a lot of catch up they play. It's psychologically tough.
Yeah. A. And I would go with B. You compound that day over day. Anybody who's watching this, who does the grind and works those long hours, just day after day after day, you get to day 4 or 5 of 10 straight days of 10, 12-hour shifts. On day 5, you're kind of dead. I've lived it. I know a lot of hardworking people that are listening to this probably feel it as well. But and people are going to say, there are millionaires or hockey players, they should do it. Yes, granted, absolutely. But I think the issue is how the team is constructed right now and how Martin St. Louis is using the team. He is overusing his players to the point of using a car that's 5,000 kilometers past its oil change. It's just you're screeching that engine. And it's not well oiled right now. And I don't think it was more indicative than last night. The Canadiens' second line didn't exist. It was just a rotation of Alex Newhook, Patrick Laine, and whoever they put on the wing. And that, to me, is the most indicative thing because the Canadiens basically played with a first line, a rotee, and 2 fourth lines, hoping to get victories against the Carolina Hurricanes, and a very motivated Philadelphia Flyers. I don't think that's going to work. And obviously in Philly, they should have had that game, and goaltending did not help there either. But I think where I would stand to reason is when you look at teams like the Florida Panthers, you look at teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs, you look at teams like Tampa Bay Lightning. How do you even keep up with that? Even the Ottawa Senators have 2 functioning lines right now. How do you keep up with that from a matchup perspective? You cannot, and you get to a point where you hit a wall. And I feel like this is normal growth pains, especially for a team that, in my honest opinion, doesn't have its best offensive asset on the team yet in Ivan Demidov. I think that'll help a lot. But to me, the team is just scratching the surface on what they can do, but they're so barrenly thin at forward when it comes to true puck-moving forwards. And it's the reason why, for example, we talked about this on the other show. You tell me if I'm wrong here, but it's the reason why a guy like Alex Newhook has been standing out so much since the break because, good Lord, there's another player that could take the puck up the ice down the middle with speed other than Nick Suzuki. Exactly. And not only does it look appealing to a fan, but he's producing now. Like he was extremely snake bitten, and then now it's starting to score goals a little bit here and there. I think over a full season as a third line center, that could be something you count on. So again, things you build on. But from a secondary scoring perspective, like the second line, I know that a lot of people will put the statistic that the Canadiens have the most amount of goal scorers in double digits in the NHL. Yeah, okay, that's fine and dandy, but those goals generally come out of blowouts, right? Like it's when the Canadiens run up the score sheet. I'm talking how many of those 10 goal players have game-winning goals? More than one, right? Like I think that's the key. And is when you get to this point of the season, that's when you see like the warrior kind of players. So like Josh Anderson, unfortunately his salary, he'll never really truly be worth the salary. Same thing with Brendan Gallagher. But the role they play on a fourth line or a third line is elite. I think they really do play the position well. Where I think the Canadiens are hurting right now is their second and fourth lines have evaporated.
Right.
Outside of Patrick Laine on the power play and Alex Newhook trying to do what he can, it's just not consistent enough. So from a matchup perspective, it's super easy to play against the Canadiens. Everybody on line one, everybody attacks Suzuki. And so what does Martin St. Louis do? He double shifts Suzuki on the power play.
Yeah.
Right? He's playing penalty kill. He's sometimes being double shifted at 5-on-5 with that open slot because they're playing 11-7 or when they shorten the bench at the end of the game. So he's playing 20, 21, 22 minutes. What do you think doing 11 straight games of that is going to do to a player? Once you get to game 13, 14,
correct.
You're not like if every game is do or die, even if they make the playoffs, they're going to be dead.
Agreed.
So,
agreed. And just to your point, right? Brendan Gallagher, 17 goals, 1 game winner. Juraj Slafkovsky, 16 goals, 1 game winner. Double-digit goal scorers on the team without game-winning goals. Josh Anderson, 13. Christian Dvorak's got 10. Emil Heineman's got 10. When was the last time that guy scored a goal? So just to your point, like the extreme example, Cole Caulfield, 34 goals, 7 game winners. Nick Suzuki, 22 goals, 6 game winners. The surprising number there is Jake Evans has 5 game winners. Like that's when this guy was shooting at 30%, so, you bring up a pretty strong point when we talk about the double digits and where are those goals.
Exactly.
Correct.
It's down the stretch.
Great stuff as always. Follow Marco D'Amico at MN D'Amico. Check him out on RG. Don't forget, we'll link Marco's articles in the descriptions of the videos down below. Marco, a pleasure as always. Thank you, sir. And make sure to check out that comment section. It's lit AF, as the kids like to say. Thanks,
God,
brother.
No problem.
Yeah.